YSF Beats.
Hey, how you doing? This is a build review of the QAV180 quadcopter frame. While I won't sit and bore you with a time-lapse video of me assembling this quadcopter, I'll just show you a series of photos, a little bit of video, and point out some key elements and points of discussion that I came across while assembling this multi-rotor. So we'll start off with the frame and work our way to the back of the quadcopter and discuss, tips for assembly, some of the components, and we'll go from there. So stay tuned. Frame I chose is a QAV180 frame. Now you can probably tell that this is not the Lumineer QAV180 frame, but a Chinese clone that I picked up off of eBay. Right now I'm just not good enough to go ahead and justify the $75 to $100 on a frame, so I picked up the Chinese clone. There are different versions of this, so just be cognizant of that when you order your frame. Overall, the frame specs at 3mm for the main plate and 1.5mm for the top plate. It's pretty stiff. It says 3K carbon, but coming out of China, you can never be too sure. I'm going to assume, like with the rest of the carbon fiber that's coming out of China, the top layers are indeed carbon fiber, with the middle layers being the fiberglass, which is going to equate to more weight on your frame or your chassis, if you will. But it still offers a pretty stiff and rigid frame once assembled. The motor holes line up correctly when you're putting a 2205 size motor on the arms. The hardware is good, screws, aluminum posts, that's all satisfactory. One thing to note is, because this is a clone, it is not the same size as the QAV180 offered by Lumineer. And I say that because I ordered some 3D printed parts from FPV Flight Test, if I'm not mistaken. The link is at the bottom. But those parts didn't fit, namely the bumper and the motor guards. Motor guards wouldn't snap on. The bumper was too narrow. So I know that their stuff is going to fit on the Lumineer frame, but it just didn't fit on this Chinese clone. So be cognizant of that when picking up your frame. If you want some 3D printed parts to finish off your finished quad, then you might want to consider the Lumineer frame, or possibly print those parts off yourself. Some other things that could be improved are, it does not come with the grommet for your power wires. You're going to have to purchase that separately. Nor does it come with the strap to secure your battery. So again, that's going to have to be picked up separate, or look in your stash, you may have another one. The camera mount holes for your flight camera are huge. I mean, they are big. So depending on the type of camera you buy, you may have to modify the camera mounting plates in order to get your camera to fit properly. I also noticed that the top plate did not offer enough camera tilt angle, so I had to modify that as well, and I'll show you how to do that during the assembly portion of this video. One last thing that I'll mention is that even though this is a compact frame, it does offer enough room to mount your recording camera, such as the GoPro or Mobius, and the battery, and it still will balance pretty good. So you do have that option with this frame if you do decide to run that recording camera. Finally, I'll go ahead and rate this as a 7 out of 10. Could be a couple improvements, but it's a Chinese frame, so you pay for what you get. Now we're moving into the components of the build. So we'll start off with the motors. I chose the EMAX MT2205 2 motors. They are rated at 2300 kV. They spec pretty good. I did some research, looked online and watched a little bit of the videos, and finally pulled the trigger on these motors. They weren't clearly rated for 4S operation. That's why I was doing all this research. But I will tell you firsthand that 4S on these motors is perfectly fine. Okay, 4S is perfectly fine. They run very cool, and I'm not sure if that's because of the bell design. I mean, they say that, you know, the bell design allows for cooler operation, this, that, and the third, but I just know they run cool, so on 4S, so that's a bonus there. Another added bonus with the cooling holes being so large is that in the event you take a spill and you get some crud in your motor, all you got to do is flip the quad upside down, spin the propellers with your finger, you know, just go ahead and pull your battery, flip quad upside down, spin the prop a couple of times, and you'll see the debris start falling out of the winding area in your motor. So the holes are large enough to allow debris to escape in the event of a crash. Hardware is top notch. You get an Allen wrench, you get different screws. You get a shorter screw and a longer screw for mounting your motors. I'm not sure of the size of the screws, but you get long ones and you get short ones. So depending on your frame, how you mount them, use the appropriate screw. Instead of these acorn style nuts, would like to have seen locking nuts included. I know a lot of us are preferring the locking nuts over these acorn style nuts, so maybe include locking nuts instead of these Rudy Poo acorn nuts. The motor C-clips suck, alright? I'm just going to tell you that now. If you have to service your motor and you have to pop the C-clip, just plan on replacing it from the jump. I mean, those things suck. They're small, they do their job, you know, but if you got some crud in your motors and you just got to pull the top off, then plan on just replacing it off the jump. Recommend grabbing a pack of 1/8 E-clips and maybe some bushings or shims, because you'll lose those as well, and keeping those in your spares box. But overall, excellent motor. I am very pleased that I chose these. Grade of 9 out of 10. The ESCs I chose are the DYS XM20 ESCs. Chose these because, again, they spec well. They're running the BL Heli firmware, so that's a plus. I've got really comfortable with BL Heli, and so I kind of prefer that over the Simon K stuff. They're rated for 2S through 4S operation, and they are opto ESCs, and because they're going to run cooler, more efficient, and are going to be smaller and lighter than 20 amp ESC that has a BEC installed on it. So keep that in mind. Comes with BL Heli. Again, they work out of the box, okay, with the latest BL Heli suite. They also work with the FC pass-through if your flight controller is flashed with Beta Flight. So they do work. You can go ahead and synchronize and program and do all your ESC configuration without actually taking the servo wire off of your flight controller and plugging it into a freaking FTDI adapter. You ain't got to worry about all that. Hook them up to your flight controller, run Beta Flight, use the flight controller pass-through, and configure all your ESCs that way. And it'll also synchronize them, put the same settings on all 4 ESCs. So check out other videos on how to do that. I'm not going to do that here, but very good ESC. I give it a 10 out of 10. Now we come to the heart of the build, which is the Naze 32 Rev 6 flight controller. Okay, this is the Acro version of the board, and it came in at around $20 shipped. All right, so cheaper than any other Naze 32 that I've ordered. So great bang for the buck there. This is standard Naze 32, no flashy crap. I will tell you that the pin layout is different, so be cognizant of that when choosing your flight controller. Make sure that this pin configuration will work for you. Okay? The included cable is dumb. I hate that thing. It's a 10-pin style connector, and it's got a whole bunch of crap coming off of it. What I did was I salvaged the stuff that I need. It had some thin gauge wire on it, so I needed some wire. I pulled it off of there, and the rest of it went in the garbage. All right, lots of pins are included. You get some straight, you get some bent, so use whatever you need, and I guess put the rest in your spares box. Comes with 2 megabytes of onboard flash memory. It's not a lot, okay, so I know for a fact that I had this thing on for about a minute, logging 100% of data, and that memory filled up within that minute. All right, so you guys running black box, all right, firm black box guys, you know, I don't know if that 2 meg is going to be enough for you. So look at another flight controller, maybe the full NAS832. I know it has more onboard flash memory. Also, might want to consider a flight controller that has a built-in SD card for you black box guys that like to log all of your data. Now, the old F1 processor is probably at its peak. All right, it's running, you know, as fast as it's going to run, as much crap as it's going to run. So look for the NAS832 F3 to be coming pretty soon, if it's not out already. I'm not sure. I know for sure that the Flip 32 F3 is out, so NAS832 F3 is probably not far behind. But for an F1 board, give it a 10 out of 10. Now we're looking at the power distribution board, and this is just a PDB that I picked up off of eBay. It's going to be a Chinese-made PDB. The quality is good. You know, none of the integrated circuits fell off in shipping, so I guess that translates to, you know, good quality. There are jumpers on there to select 12 volt or 5 volt operations for your video, so that is an option. It comes default with the 12 volt, so if you want to change that, make sure you desolder the 12 volt pads and solder the 5 volt pads. There are more pads on there as well, so check that out before you apply power to all your components. Make sure that you're sending the correct power to all of your accessories that you want to send. Okay, the power is clean on this board. There's very little ripple, and I say ripple as it equates to the video. All right, now as far as actual ripple going to the ESCs, you know, I don't have an oscilloscope, so I can't really tell you if there's, you know, a 12 volt ripple in there. But because of the built-in filters, the video signal is really good. Okay, it's really good. The bonus of this board is that it has a built-in OSD. Now, the OSD works perfectly fine on 3S, but it gets a little iffy on 4S under full throttle. And I say that because on full throttle, doing punch outs, you'll notice that your OSD display is gone. I mean, it just doesn't come back either. So the only reason it'll come back, only time it'll come back, excuse me, is if you disconnect the battery and you reconnect the battery. So it's a little iffy under 4S operation. Okay, also this does not read the voltage from the battery. Okay, you would think because it has an integrated OSD, right, it's going to just pull the voltage, you know, for display straight from the battery, and it doesn't. Okay, it does not do that, and it took me a while to figure this out, and I was just like, screw it, it's not going to do it. I mean, you can set it up in your OSD software on your computer, and it'll display whatever voltage you have it set up at, and it will not change. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to use the VBAT or some kind of voltage sensing from your flight controller, and you know, that's going to go ahead and get transmitted from the flight controller through the UART1, and then you're going to have to send that back to your OSD. It's really funky on how you got to read your voltage. I haven't done the current stuff. I haven't set that up, and so I'm not going to be able to talk about that. I don't care about current so much. I just care about the voltage and if my my quad's going to fall out of the sky soon. So, but everything else, it works. It's an OSD. Nothing too snazzy about that. The USB allows for easier operation programming than your FTDI cable, so you can program it using your ESP. Connects up to your software just fine. What I wish they would have done for your transmit and receive pins coming from your flight controller, wish they would have put a switch on there. I don't know if it's a word, but put a switch on there. That'll resolve the UART1 conflict, because as you know, some NAS-A32 or other flight controllers, I'm not sure, if you run clean flight, you have those TX and RX pins connected to your flight controller, or connected to your OSD rather, you're going to have connection issues and configuration issues with clean flight. Maybe clean flight will lock up. You won't be able to do any programming. So maybe a switch in there to disconnect one of those leads. I don't know if that even works. I may experiment with that, but if it does, hell, throw it in there and make that part of your board. But because of all the issues, I'm going to rate this board as a 6 out of 10. It does supply power, but the OSD, OSD on a power distribution board maybe isn't a good idea. Next thing we'll talk about is the camera. I chose the Foxeer HS1177 600 TV line camera. It's a very solid camera, even though it says all plastic case. That just translates to being a lot lighter than a camera that has a metal case. I was a bit skeptical about that because I can beat some cameras up. I've gone through several of the Fat Shark 600 TV line cameras, and this one is taking a pretty good beating, as you can see in these videos. Running into some trees, cartwheels across the grass, over at Bruce's, ditched it in the dirt a couple times. So very solid, even though it is a plastic design. Comes with all the hardware, etc., etc. Also has a programming cable, because this camera has OSD options, and you can also configure the color, the white balance. There's tons of options for configuring the camera itself, and I found out that you're going to need to configure the camera before you go ahead and install this on your quad. The reason being is, when I did my assembly and initial test, I was inside my office, and it's a pretty well lit office. Then I went home, and in my bedroom was dimly lit, and I checked it out, and the screen was in black and white. I was like, what's going on here? There's a indoor and outdoor mode, so I didn't realize that I had to switch that. Okay, so again, program your camera before you throw it on your quad. 12 volt only operation, but it does run as low as 10.5 volts, so it'll work. Again, there's tons of options. Like, there's even option to show the backup lines, on your car, backup lines, and coincidentally they stop right in the middle of the screen. So if you're doing some training on racing training, on air gate training, I don't know, maybe that'll be useful for some people. So yeah, solid camera. I like it. I think this is going to be my camera of choice from now on. So 9 out of 10 on the Foxeer HS1177. Some final thoughts on this build. This video went a little longer than I originally planned, so I had to break it down into 2 parts. So part 2 will have the assembly notes and build notes and tips that I came across when assembling this quadcopter. Before I close out this video, I'll let you know that the battery that I chose is the VENOM drone series of batteries, 1300 milliamp 50 CPAT. Nice battery, it does its job. You can decide whichever battery you want to run. Make sure that you get the correct C rating, and I may just discuss that in the second part of this video. And lastly, I chose the BOSCAM TS5823 200 milliwatt video transmitter. Standard 32 channel video transmitter, does well, no issues with that, been using them for a while, very lightweight. So thanks for watching this video, and there will be a link at the bottom for part 2. So check out part 2 for the build notes and tips and tricks. Thanks.